Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 35 of the Clappercast. I'm Sean,
And I'm Burke.
and we are here recording the first episode of 2020. It is January 6th, 2020, and actually we're recording on the 1 year anniversary of our first episode. So,
Woo!
congrats to us. I think that's a pretty cool milestone.
Happy 2020, everybody.
And what a way to start off the year than with the now traditional World Junior Classic, hey?
Yeah, it's just my favorite time of the year. It's
Who
just
cares about Christmas? Who cares about New Year's? It's the World Junior Classic's time to shine, and that's the end. Don't at me. That's the end all.
I'm gonna at you, Sean. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna quote you on that.
Put that on my gravestone.
It really is a great time, though. It's just, you think of how many legends played in this tournament and how many memorable moments there are, like Jordan Eberle, Jonathan Taves.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just huge.
And it's honestly it's some of the best hockey we're ever gonna watch. Year in, year out,
Absolutely.
it never fails to disappoint that there is at least one game that is just gonna stick out and you're watching a whole bunch of guys who are just playing their absolute hearts out.
Yeah, it's really
So
a
on that
treat.
note, what did you think of this year's tournament? Anything stand out for you?
I think that the camera had an outstanding tournament.
I agree.
Real,
I
the
agree.
real MVP of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think cameras really up their draft stock for this coming year. Might go late first round, I'm thinking.
I think doesn't slip any further than that. But in all seriousness, I think it was a pretty great one. Pretty happy with the result. Canada winning. A little bit of a sour taste in my mouth based on the
Yeah, honestly,
non-call with that camera.
I think the AAHF's going to have a bit of a rule rewrite to handle after this because from what
Oh,
I read, the refs
absolutely.
the refs technically made the right call. It's just a very trickily worded rule that
Mhm.
doesn't really properly factor in context.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those 50-50 calls where it could be interpreted either way, and they just happened
Hmm.
to interpret it that way. So if you didn't watch it, because I know only basically Canada watches it, Canada-Russia was in the finals, and Russia had a power play in the last, what, like 2 minutes or
Yeah,
something?
this was down in the last 2 minutes. It was like a minute 50 or something left.
Canada puts it out of play, it bounces off a camera that's basically right on the line of the glass, and it was deemed to be in play, so it wasn't a delay of game penalty. So Russia was robbed of a 5-on-3 in the last minutes of the game, down a goal.
And they also went and blew their power play. Even their 5-on-4 got blown up 10 seconds later when they took another penalty. It kind of was a buzzkill at the end of the game, which was
Mhm.
otherwise a fantastic game. That was a very exciting, fast-paced, like offense everywhere. With Akil Thomas being Canada's hero with the game-winning goal with 4 minutes left.
Yeah, a couple big comeback moments in that game. Canada was
Hmm.
down like 3-1 in the third, and then just came back with some clutch goals, and then
Excellent leader Barrett Hayton with the start of the comeback.
yeah, he was surprisingly in that game. Everybody thought he wasn't going to play, and then makes a huge impact in the game. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Some solid goaltending by Joel
Yeah, so
Hofer.
shout out to Joel Hofer for stepping in that blowout from Russia earlier in the tournament, and he was lights out the rest of the way in.
Yeah.
Outstanding goal. He covered Canada's defense was awful in that tournament,
Yes.
and Hofer just came in and shut the door. He covered so many mistakes. He made huge saves and was probably their MVP in the last half of the tournament there.
I was looking it up because I was interested. He's a Blues draft pick, second round pick in 2018, I think. So
Ooh, he's gonna fight with Binnington for
yeah,
the starting job right away.
could be. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. The defense was pretty bad. I agree with that. Canada just got blown by on the blue line a lot in that gold medal game, and just had a lot of lapses of coverage throughout the tournament.
Big
They were
time.
lucky that the goaltender was able to bail them out.
Their gap control was terrible. They'd always leave way too much space between them and their check, and it was so easy for them, especially Russia, because they had a fast team this year. That it was
Yeah.
so easy for Russia just to blow by them, like you said, when they're leaving way too much space, and they had no physical engagement on the players at all. So guys just spun right around and went and did their own thing. Led to a lot of really great A chances for the opponents.
That Hofer plays for Portland Winterhawks in WHL, so I was thinking I'm gonna have to go see him play sometime. when he's in
Yeah,
town.
that's definitely. If you wanna see a goalie put up a shutout.
I don't know. I thought Russia had some great players. Alexander Romanov laying the body some players. He had a great tournament.
Oh my God, he's gonna be an absolute beast in the NHL. He's got
Yeah.
he's got the speed and the offensive instinct to be an excellent modern day defenseman, and then he's just got that physical presence that is gonna be huge, huge, huge for Montreal when he's making the NHL soon.
Yeah, I think Montreal is very happy with how he's been developing. That tournament was great for him.
Definitely.
Any other players that stood out to you?
Joe Veleno.
Yeah,
So basically
Detroit's
just
happy with
watching
that.
Canada, but yeah, Joe Veleno, I mean, he slipped big time in the draft, right down to Detroit. And that guy was everywhere this tournament. That's every single time he was on the ice, his name is number one in play-by-play dominance. He's doing stuff all over the ice, contributes offensively. He was solid defensively, and his positioning and everything was just pretty damn good. So he had a great tournament, and probably starting to make some teams regret not taking him earlier in the draft.
Absolutely. Anybody else you can think of?
That's all I had in my head.
I mean, Alexis Lafreniere was obviously outstanding. No one really needs to know that. I thought Kalen Addison was impressive. He was always out there on the power play, feeding everybody. I thought he had a great tournament.
Yes.
Outside of Team Canada, what's it? Rasmus
Rasmus
Sandin.
Sandin. Yeah.
Yeah. He had a pretty good tournament. I think Moritz
Keep hearing his
Seider.
name all over the place, but yeah, Sandin was excellent. 10 points in 7 games as a defenseman is pretty damn good.
Moritz Seider, Germany, another Detroit guy. Was laying the body for
Yeah,
Germany.
kind of unfortunate. Germany struggled a bit more than I thought they would. I thought they'd be able to do just a little bit more with some of the top talent they had this year. But even at that, a handful of guys like Cedar and they had a couple of guys in their top line with like Dominic Bach and John Peterka that they actually did make a pretty big contribution. So
Hmm. Yeah. Podkolzin on Russia also looked good. I don't think he did caught a lot of points, but he looked good without the puck.
yeah,
He's a
and him
Vancouver
with him
pick.
too, it's hard to totally judge it because the guy's barely played this year. This is like the
Yeah.
first time he's played all season. He's kind
Yeah.
of sitting on the bench in Russia, so he's
Um,
definitely going to be rusty.
Denisenko had
Yeah,
some.
Russia's leading scorer. He made a big name. He was a bit he looks like he got quite frustrated by the end of that game though.
Yeah.
Understandably so.
Yeah, I think everybody on Russia was pretty pissed off. What was that one guy's name? He took two penalties in that game. He just was very undisciplined. Dmitry Voronkov. And he
Dmitry
took that
Veronka.
one where he ran over the centerman on Canada.
Hmm.
Took that other one where there was the two penalties on the one play. He took the second one.
Okay,
Just
okay, that guy.
yeah. So I don't think he was doing himself any favors.
No, he had 16 penalty minutes in the tournament, so
Yeah, that's not ideal.
no, it's minor penalty plus a game, so
USA definitely had a pretty negative, disappointing tournament, being knocked off by
definitely.
Finland, being shut out in that game.
They didn't have as strong a roster as they've had in recent years. They did kind of a lot of their best players had moved on and weren't coming back, and they were kind of looking to rely on like Cole Caulfield and Trevor Zegras basically to help them out. Luckily, they had a really good goalie. That wasn't quite enough, and they didn't have the top end talent to really compete with teams like Sweden, the U.S., and Canada, or Sweden, Finland, and Canada. Pardon me.
Yeah, they came out strong. I was worried in that first game against Canada. They looked like they were just unbeatable, and then Canada just came back. But they
Yeah,
had that strong, power play. They got Bobby Brink. That's one of the all-time names, I think. That's awesome
that's
hockey
up there.
name.
Yeah, that's a very 1970s.
Yeah, I kept hearing that, and I was just, that is a great name. That's
Yeah.
just outstanding. But aside from that, I thought it was a pretty good tournament. There was some weird headbutting issues
Yeah,
that
I don't
came
know
up.
what was up with that. That was like the main theme of the tournament is everyone decides to start headbutting everybody.
Yeah, very weird.
Came out of nowhere.
But aside from that, yeah, it was a pretty competitive tournament. It was pretty wide open. There's some weird scores, some
Well, I'm
upsets.
looking I'm looking right now like Switzerland beating Finland 5-2.
Hmm.
So like not only Switzerland scoring 5 goals in a game, but beating Finland, the defending champs. So
Yeah,
that's a pretty big win for them.
I don't know what else to say about that. There's lots of excitement for where Alexis Lafreniere goes. Um, maybe
He
Detroit.
finally got a national stage to show himself off on.
Definitely did not disappoint.
Because honestly, like a lot of us, especially out in the West, have never seen him play before.
Hmm.
So that was kind of our first exposure to him, and he looks like he's a very talented player.
That's definitely where the tournament thrives. It's just that showcasing of talent and
Yep.
getting people more used to the name and the excitement for the draft. What else has happened aside from that? There was the outdoor game, the Winter Classic. It was a little eventful.
So who won? Was it Chicago or Pittsburgh?
No joke. Chicago is rumored to be the next competitor in one of those against the Minnesota Wild.
I saw they were wanting to make it in Minnesota, and I was like, that's kind of weird to have Chicago and Pittsburgh play in Minnesota, but okay,
I think
whatever the league
Chicago's
wants to do.
okay not playing in them because I think they've never won in one, haven't they?
I feel like that's an appropriate curse.
They've just always lost.
It's like at what point does their GM just kind of be like, no more, we're not taking this anymore.
Yeah, stop. We're already dead. But yeah, Corey Perry.
Yeah, that's the only noteworthy story out of that game is Corey Perry doing Corey Perry things.
He played like 50 seconds in the game and then got a 5 in a game for elbowing, just ejected. The
Yeah,
most notable thing was he had to make that long walk of shame out of
I
the
think
arena.
I think that's a very good punishment in itself, and I really hope that they can find a way to implement that long walk of shame in more arenas for when you get kicked out of the game.
Did you see the video where they had the penalty music from the winter or from the World Juniors on his walkout?
No, I never got a chance to watch that. I heard about it and really need to go see that because it's got to be the most hilarious thing ever.
It's pretty great. That's probably one of the best things to come out of that tournament is that really awesome
Yeah,
tuba music for the penalties
yeah.
and
I isn't that like someone needs to bring that into the NHL, like for
it
real.
just
I'd rather hear that than whatever random like clap your hands song they're playing.
yeah brought some levity to the situation. It was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean otherwise that Winter Classic, the only other thing was that Nashville choked. They went up 2-0 on that 5 minute major. They got a 5-on-3 during that major actually too. So they went up 2-0, got an early lead, and then Dallas came back and won. That's really it.
Which I mean, yeah, testament to Nashville just kind of sucking lately. We'll talk more about them later, but they've been struggling big time, and that's pretty much a testament to it. Choking away a lead in that game.
Hmm.
Going back to the Corey Perry hit, so he's kind of elbowed Ryan Ellis in the face. It wasn't like a accidental thing. He threw his arms right into him,
Don't you believe what he said though?
skating by from the side. So a couple of days later, the Department of Player Safety gave Corey Perry a 5-game suspension. So they maxed it out. He had a phone hearing and they gave him the maximum penalty for that. So Perry gets to miss his what would have been his return to Anaheim actually in part of that suspension
Yeah, so now he's returning to Anaheim on April Fool's Day.
because he's a joke.
Layup. Yeah, I think it was a well-deserved suspension. That's kind of what my immediate thought was 5.
Yeah, I mean, at some point we kind of want to start seeing more when stuff like that happens, where it's not you can't even justify that as an accident. It'd be nice to see more, but they gave him the max that they could with the hearing that they gave him. So I'm actually okay with the 5.
Yeah.
Technically 6 because he got kicked out of the other game too.
The best thing to come out of that Winter Classic is the Corey Perry game worn jersey for the first period
Yes,
of that game. It was
lightly used.
auctioned off on the auctions NHL site. The current bid is at $3,000 US.
Well, you see, it's a great value because you get 2 players. You get Corey Perry wore the jersey, and then Ryan Ellis's face on the elbow.
Yeah, you're getting the DNA of 2 players.
Exactly.
It's just pretty funny that it specifies on the posting worn during first period.
I'm more disappointed that he didn't stay in his equipment in the locker room while he watched his team play, and that he just like got undressed and did something else. Not a team player.
What a guy. Um, One thing I wanted to bring up is the whole Tortorella Columbus thing. So have you been following that story?
Just a little bit. That's in regards to the time clock thing, right?
Yeah, so there's a bit of
Yeah.
a controversy in the last minute or so of the yeah, it was like the last 30 seconds of the Columbus game. Who was that against? I don't know. Doesn't really matter. But Columbus was playing. There was a penalty that was called for too many men, and they let the clock run a few extra seconds. And Torts asked the refs to fix the clock, put the time back up. They denied his request. They didn't even look at it. They just straight up said no. And then on that power play, Columbus scored right after time expired. So like the puck was like on the way and then the clock ran down. And then they went to overtime. Nobody won. They went to a shootout and Jonas Corposalo got hurt during the shootout and had to leave. So
Yeah.
they not
And
only
now he's
didn't
out, what,
win,
6 weeks?
yeah, and then they lost their starter, and he was pissed, really mad after the
Justifiably
game.
so.
Yeah, so he was mad. He let the referees, the NHL have it. He said like that's got to be looked at. Somebody's got to step in and make sure that the time is right. That happens so many times in hockey. You check the clock and make sure it's accurate.
I didn't even know they could deny a request to do that, to be honest. Like I thought it was just a default. They did that and after late whistles. Or
Yeah,
if
I don't know
like
why they
whoever
would
noticed, like I'd
deny.
never even heard of them denying it.
It's such a weird thing. And Torts, like we said, was livid, and he used some colorful language to describe his opinion on the whole thing, and he got fined $20,000 for his comments.
Yeah, that's it's not
And
surprising. I mean, that was kind of
yeah,
expected as soon as he said everything, but it's kind of a it's always a bit of a weird look to find someone for something like that, where it kind of looks as like you can't question us.
yeah, Colin Campbell came out and like condemned his Torts' comments right after, and he offered an explanation of as to why they didn't review it, but it didn't answer Torts' criticism of,
No, it never does.
it was just like this is why we stopped play. It wasn't this is why we didn't review it. So it was completely skirting the issue,
Hmm.
and then they fined Torts $20,000 for criticizing the league. It's just a joke. So the positive thing out of all of this is that GoFundMe was started, and it wasn't just to give money to Torts because he obviously doesn't really need it. The team will probably cover him on that, but it was for the Tortorella Foundation. So the money's
Yeah,
going
one
to
of
go to
his he's got like rescue animal foundations and stuff, which is actually a pretty cool cause
yeah,
and a pretty cool little like I say bonus, but just charity or fundraiser for him. Show like rather than just raising the money for his fine where he just donates it to whatever himself. Um, it's just the fans going and doing something like that as a show of support for him and what he said, which I think
yeah,
is pretty cool.
totally a cool show of support to let him know that people agree with his
Yeah.
comments and are outraged. um, so it's just kind of ridiculous where now teams are not saying their opinions. There was Paul Maurice after a Winnipeg game where they had some questionable calls in overtime. Came out and said like, I don't want to say my real opinion because I'll probably get fined.
Yeah.
It's just a meme now amongst NHL coaches.
Which is unfortunate because these officials are not infallible
Yeah,
and they are very often subject to scrutiny and they can have their decisions questioned. There's a limit with which that we should be or they should be allowed to say publicly because this type of stuff can be handled quite effectively behind the scenes. But to start like to start having that threat of a fine if you publicly voice your opinion on a call is not the greatest look.
yeah. And to be fair, Tortorella said, I shouldn't have had that outburst to the media. I should have handled it, behind closed doors.
Yeah,
So
and I
he
think that's an
realizes
effective
that.
response even, instead of just saying I don't want to get fined for this, and say we're handling it behind closed doors. You don't have to like publicly criticize it,
Yeah,
but yeah.
because I get the league's take on it, but at the same time, I agree with Tortorella. It's horseshit that they didn't review it, and
Hmm.
like I think they were just like backing up the timekeeper, but I mean, how many times do you see that happen? Just the
I
clock
mean,
getting
honestly, how
reworked.
much time do we lose every game to that? Because no one looks at it, and like a minute into the period, no one looks at the clock when the whistle's blown unless it's egregious.
Yeah, I don't get why it was such an issue to just look at it because that happens all the time in like the dying minutes of a game.
Yeah,
It
everyone
doesn't
always
take
does.
that long. It's just like let's get this over with. Yeah, maybe if it was like a 5-0 game or something like that, but in like a close one, like a tie game, why not? It just
Hmm.
seems dumb to me. So anyway, Tort's doing Tort's things and getting fined because of it, but I honestly think that Columbus will just pay him back for that
Probably.
because they probably agree with his
Let's be honest.
comments.
They Columbus knew what they get when they were hiring John Tortorella. They probably have some sort of insurance clause that's just like a Tortorella policy.
Yeah, they probably have a internal account. That's just, the
Yeah,
Tortorella account.
it's like normally you'd have your depreciation or something. Your depreciation fund is just a Tortorella fund.
Yeah.
It's
Would
like
not
X amount
surprise
from
me.
each game goes into here to cover future fines.
Yeah. Would not surprise me at all. So while that gold medal junior game was happening, I was also watching the Sharks versus the Capitals. And I don't know if you were watching it live, but that was a wild one.
I
Really
watched
wild.
the last like few minutes, that video you sent me basically
Yeah.
afterwards.
So the Sharks were up by 1 minute left. Logan Couture gets an empty net goal. Sharks broadcast says this is a team that's finding their identity. They're finding ways to win these tough games against good opponents on the road. Cue meltdown. Caps get two 6-on-5 goals within the last minute of play with time to spare, forcing overtime, win in overtime. Rip Martin Jones.
Yeah, I that's what a finish. You never expect that, especially, you could hear it in the Caps broadcast as well. The commentators are kind of like, well, that's game as soon as the empty netter was scored.
Yeah,
And you're just kind of waiting for the clock to run out. But no, let's just, hit Caps. I think you said they're one of the best 6-on-5 teams in the league. So they go they go score 2 goals, take the game to overtime and win. And like that's the type of never say die attitude that's a successful team has. Like to keep that motivation to keep playing until the clock runs out, even though you're down 2 goals with a minute left.
it's honestly one of my favorite things about the Capitals is that they always try and play until the very end. They never give up. Like when Ovechkin first came into the league, like there would be a time where you could see it, they would kind of give up, but now they don't. They keep playing right until the end because they just you never know, right? All it takes is a couple bounces, you're right back in it.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's just so funny that the Sharks commentator team, like this is a team finding their identity.
But yeah, I mean, isn't that what people do after high school? They go take a gap year, find their identity traveling, and then come back and then do their thing. I think
Yeah, I
that's the
mean, it
Sharks
makes
this year.
sense. Makes sense. San Francisco,
Yeah,
or San
it's pretty
Diego, or
accurate.
whatever.
Like
Yeah, they're just exploring the
Sharks taking their
world,
gap year, they're
man.
going to be good again
Finding
next year, but
their.
they just need to figure out who they are.
Yeah, I think they found their identity. I think they found it, buds. They're pretty
I think they
choking.
misinterpreted the chokers thing.
It's a pretty brutal loss for them.
Yeah,
They're
for a struggling team that still hasn't really turned it around consistently after the coaching change, with the roster what they have, they cannot be doing this, and they just have not. They've lost more ground, I think, in the Pacific.
yeah. So
They weren't
what's
even in the
the?
playoff picture.
I believe there was a thing that I saw where this was the first time where a team has been up by 2 goals, where one of those goals was an empty net goals, and they lost.
I saw that too. First time in history that's happened.
Yeah, I think it was like the last minute, within the last 2 minutes of play or something. It was the first time that that's ever happened. It's just because teams have scored an empty net goal and lost, but it wasn't. Yeah, there was something about it that was just special. So I think that the Sharks are historic in their choke jobs. That they're getting to that point where they can't just lose; they have to lose in a historic fashion to make it
In a
interesting.
fashionable fashion, basically.
Yeah.
If they're gonna lose, at least make it memorable.
Yeah. And on those goals, Martin Jones was just so far back in the crease. He was just basically on the goal line. Like he wasn't even
Yeah.
trying. It's
You and I have talked about this before, but at what point is San Jose going to have to give up on Martin Jones?
I think that the time is nigh.
Like, it really is.
Yeah,
I think
the
last
time
year
is
he was
nigh.
statistically the one of the worst goalies in the NHL. He's not doing himself any favors again this year. And aside from those couple of games in last year's playoffs where he bounced back and like he was the reason San Jose got as far as they did in last year's playoffs. But every goalie's going to have their hot streak, and he seems to be more consistently bad than good.
Yeah, I think he's one of the main reasons that they're doing as poorly as they are this year. Because good teams can expect to have their goalie sneak a few wins for them, right? Would you say that?
Exactly. Yep.
It just happens throughout the year. And if you have a below average goalie, you're not going to get those wins. And in the Pacific right now, you need that to happen to be in a playoff spot. If you don't have that happening, tough shit. You're not going to be making playoffs.
Yep. And that's, I mean, I'll just throw the Oilers in there because I watch them more, but they've struggled with their having, average goaltending over the last few seasons, and you can see it in the team when they don't have confidence in the goalie that they play differently, they get more defeated, and when the goalie can't make any big saves to keep a team in it, to give them any momentum, it's never going to do anything. There's always going to keep sucking, and the team's never going to get any momentum or any jump in their game.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it right now, and you've got the goals saved above average stat for goalies, and Martin Jones is quite significantly the worst in the league, where he's got the worst number in the league at minus 15.6, and second is Jimmy Howard at minus 11.13, which that's telling.
It is. Who's at the top of the list?
That's going to be Connor Hellebuyck,
Nice.
10.58.
Where's Jacob Markstrom on that?
Markstrom is about 10th,
Okay, because I was gonna say,
9. He's
um,
ninth.
if you look at the Canucks, like they're a competitive team, but I would say that Jacob Markstrom has absolutely stolen them a few games.
Big time. He is one of the best goalies in the league right now.
Yeah, he's
They
been
don't have
facing
the
a lot of
greatest
shots.
team, so exactly. And that's the big one is like the Canucks give up a lot of shots, but Markstrom keeps them in games.
Yeah,
And he kind of they seem to have a bit more of a run and gun style that makes more mistakes, and he can cover them and let the offensive guns do their thing.
it's kind of like Freddie Anderson, same
Big
sort of
time.
vibe. And Martin Jones is not that type of goalie.
No,
It's a huge demoralizer and a huge deflator when you finally get a goal and then team just goes down the ice and puts one in the net. And that's what happens with Martin Jones, I think. It's just like the team is not successful because of him, but despite him, they have to overcome him. It was kind of like the last few seasons with Cam Talbot. The team just knows going in that the first shot on net is going to be a goal against, and then you have to
basically.
start the game down a goal.
Exactly. And yeah, it's such a big drag on the team to have to deal with that when you know as soon as you make a mistake it's going to be in the back of your net, and you don't have that guy who can save a goal once in a while.
Yeah, just not having that
But
confidence in him.
on a more positive note for the defenders, they're probably never going to have to buy the goalie dinner for saving their ass one game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Martin Jones owes a lot of beers to the boys.
Yeah.
I think that debt will never be repaid.
Jones's beer tab is running pretty high this year.
Yeah, pretty brutal. I think that Martin Jones needs Mitch Korn in his life to, revitalize his career. And unless that happens, I think, once his contract is up, it's gonna be rough for him.
Big time.
I don't know if
We'll
team's
see
gonna
what
really
we'll see
want
what
him.
Evgeny Nabokov can do with him. Sharks' new goalie coach.
Yeah, yeah. After that performance last night yesterday afternoon, I don't know, man. That was rough, real rough one.
Big time.
Um, let's move on here. Let's regroup on Nashville. So some news came
Yeah,
out
we'll
today.
circle back here.
So why don't you fill us in, Sean?
So we'll start from the beginning 5 days ago when Nashville GM David Poyle publicly said that he is not contemplating making a coaching change.
We all
Five
know where
days
that
later,
was going.
yeah, 5 days later, Peter Laviolette gets fired from as head coach of the Nashville Predators. They also fired one of their assistant coaches, whose name escapes me at the moment. I believe it was McCarthy. But key story is that Laviolette is done in Nashville, and even though the GM said he is not contemplating making a coaching change, when that article came out 5 days ago, I considered the possibility that not contemplating means I've made the decision, I just haven't announced it yet.
Yeah,
Sure enough, that seems to be the case.
Yeah, I don't need to contemplate anymore. I've
Yeah.
I've moved past that phase. We are
He's
now in the
technically not
take
lying.
action. Yeah, technically. That's not what I said.
No one can tell him he's a liar, he's disrespectful or anything because he technically wasn't contemplating it.
Yeah. Yeah, so the
But the Predators, yeah, they've been a struggling team this year by their standards. They're currently sitting 5 points out of a playoff spot.
yeah, second to last in the Central halfway
That's
through
the
the
key one,
season.
actually. Yeah.
They are 19, 15, and 7. So they're not like doing
No.
terribly, but they
And
should be
they
doing better.
do they do have a couple games in hand on everybody else in the division, or on their closer teams as well. So they kind of have a couple of games to make up a couple of points. But a team that's been as good as they have and made the moves that they have should not be as far down in the standings as they are.
Right. So I kind of see this as the opposite mentality as the Sharks had this season, as far as, making a regime change.
Hmm.
I see the Sharks made a move pretty late. They should have made it earlier. The writing was on the wall. This is not going to be a successful season under De Beer. And I see Laviolette as let's do something so that we can salvage the season and get somebody else in here and still have some time to make up some ground. I know it's later
Yeah,
in the season, so it's kind of counterintuitive, but the team's in a better situation than the Sharks were. As of right now, they haven't made an announcement who that replacement coach is going to be. I think they
the
said
last I
tomorrow.
saw was that tomorrow they're gonna either announce it or going into the game it's just gonna be a to be announced.
Right.
So,
So
um, on that note as
my
well,
go ahead.
Today I think Elliot Friedman said leading candidates are DeBoer as well as John Hines, who was recently
Ugh.
fired out of New Jersey, pardon me.
Oh man, if it's Hines, that's garbage.
Well, I mean the last ball coach who was in Nashville did pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think Hines is an
No,
NHL
I don't.
coach.
He kind of got thrown into a crappy situation in New Jersey. They don't exactly have a team that's conducive to success, but he didn't. I don't think he exactly showed the right mentality to be an NHL coach, especially to get another chance this soon. Maybe should have had another stint down in the AHL or in juniors or something before making another NHL stint.
Yeah, I think like Gusev fourth line. That's a. I don't think that that's something that is going to mesh well with Nashville's team. Um, this season, Laviolette was criticized for making questionable roster decisions. Healthy scratching Turris when Turris was performing the best on the team. He also struggled with the goaltending on the team. Rene's not having a great season. I
Yeah,
don't think Saros is really either. But as always, the coach takes the heat. Gets canned. I don't think he's a bad
they're the
coach. I
first.
think
Yeah,
I think he'll get another shot. He's a pretty successful coach. I mean,
he
his record
definitely will.
his record in Nashville, I have it here, was 248, 143, and 60.
Yeah,
He had
like he's
back-to-back division titles. He went to the finals. He had the President's Trophy there. He was only there since like 2014, 2015. So, I mean, he inherited a pretty good team with Barry Trotz leaving. But you know, uh, were they doing worse than they
he's
should? Maybe.
absolutely, yeah, they aren't doing as well as they should this year, but he is absolutely a good enough coach that he's going to get another shot.
Yeah,
He's probably the most highly touted free agent coach right now, I think.
yeah. Could you imagine if Babs goes to Nashville?
Oof. Now would they want that media shitstorm that soon?
I don't
That would be
know.
the big question. I think they should stick with to be announced actually.
TBA, Coach TBA,
Yeah, Coach TBA,
Coach Jack Eichel.
That's
Yeah, I
another
mean
option, yeah. Imagine
the
how awkward that would be for Eichel to be the player, GM, and owner of the Sabres, but the coach of the Predators. Is that a conflict of interest?
100%. You have to step down as at least
Yeah.
one of
Will
those.
will the league step in?
Um, the HR minded me says that when Poyle made the comment that we are not contemplating firing him, they were probably talking to people to take over, and then they fired him because they had someone sign a contract, and they're just going to make an
Okay.
announcement, and they probably don't want to. They want to give Laviolette the I don't know what the word is, but give him the respect of just firing him and not announcing the takeover in the same day, and then
Yeah.
tomorrow they'll make it about the new guy. Because
Yeah.
he's been a successful coach there, and I think they probably have a pretty good working relationship. And then tomorrow they'll make the announcement. Just make it not in the same breath as this guy's got fired. Now let's talk about this
Not
guy.
have the new coach like at the firing press conference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, it's an NHL coach. An NHL, I don't think they're gonna fire someone without having, someone signed. Especially a coach that's like not doing terribly.
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't like an urgent thing like say San Jose had.
Yeah.
It's where they pretty much there was a pretty quick movement in San Jose,
Mhm.
and well, theirs was pretty urgent considering how they started the year. Didn't change anything, but just tried.
Yeah, or like a Montgomery thing in Dallas, or
Exactly. Yeah, that too.
what's his nuts in Calgary.
Peters. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, oh shit, we gotta do something.
Yep.
Let's figure it out. Yeah, so I think Laviolette will have a job next season for sure, but we'll have to wait and see who takes over
I
as
mean,
the third
yeah,
coach in franchise history.
that's crazy to think after what 20 years in the league, they've only had three coaches.
It's pretty absurd.
And then I look at like Edmonton, who's had three coaches in the last like 5 years, 4 years, I think. I can't even keep track anymore.
Yeah, I think Trotz was definitely, the outlier in coach's time span for sure. He was there for what, like 17 seasons or something.
Something
So I think Laviolette was only there for like 30% of the same time or something like that. But I
six,
mean,
yeah, something like that.
248, 143, and 60, like that's a good record.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, their worst season was actually the worst regular season was actually the one they went to the Cup Finals, where they only won 41 games.
Wow, scrubs.
Yeah, and I mean everything they had their 53 win season, two 47 win seasons, a 41 win season, like two 41 win seasons. So they never did bad under him. And like you were saying, it's kind of like Hoyle noticing the struggles starting now. And obviously he's got a better view of what's going on behind the scenes and how the team's responding to him. So it's
Yeah,
probably he's noticing the starts of a downturn and wants to get on top of it while he's still got the chance to salvage the year.
we'll have to see what happens. Who takes the helm?
I'm interested actually because there's no definitive candidate,
No.
and I'm not quite sure. Nashville's got a unique team in the way they're built for success, and I'm interested to see who can continue that and who can take that type of team and make them as good as they are.
Babs. That's Babs music.
The ghost of Babs is haunting us.
Yeah.
Subliminal
Um,
messaging.
anything else going on around the league that you want to go over?
How about one quick note about Ilya Kovalchuk
Ooh,
on his way out to
yeah.
Montreal?
How could I forget?
So signed a 1 year deal. He wanted to go to a contender, so he picked Montreal. I don't know if he knows something we don't, but I'd be okay with Montreal being a contender.
Yeah. Just like he signed with the LA Kings, who were a contender.
Actually, wait, yeah, that might not be a good thing. He's not very good at picking contenders.
No, he is not.
So Montreal would probably want to watch out and kind of be concerned that he chose them. In
Yeah,
other words, is Lafreniere going to go to Montreal?
just throwing some shade.
Yeah,
He got an assist tonight, so he did something.
he did. So I mean, that was right from the start. Bergevin said he's going to have to buy in. Like he's got to commit to the system.
Hmm.
And if he's gonna play hard two-way game and give them some scoring that they desperately need off the wings, why not? Gives them another option.
Yeah, and with all the injuries that they have, they kind of need somebody. They need a
Yeah,
warm
I think
body.
uh, I think this was right after Gallagher got hurt. They signed him, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so they need someone to replace what Gallagher can provide. Kovalchuk's not the same type of player, but they can at least hopefully get a 20-ish goal pace out of the guy.
Yeah, you can play on the power play, get some goals.
Yeah, I think he's got an okay shot on the power play, right?
Yeah, he's not known for having a good shot or anything. Yeah, props to him. Signed a like 700K two-way deal, 1 year.
Yeah, like guy
Pretty
just wants
low
to win
risk.
before he's done.
Yeah, it is kind of weird contender, but I think it might be like the only team that was interested.
Could be. That could also be it. He probably doesn't have the greatest reputation with teams around the league right now after kind of
No,
terminating his way out of two contracts.
yeah, that's a good point. Ilya Kovalchuk, the Terminator.
he will be back.
Imagine if he never went to the KHL.
Well, how would be the Terminator if he didn't have to come back?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say about anything else going on.
Yeah, I think that wraps it up for the week. So once again, thank you everybody for listening. If you want to keep up to date with any content we have through the week, you can follow us on Instagram at Clappercast Media or on Twitter at Clappercast. And if you like what you're listening to here, make sure you share it with your friends, pass it around on social media. We appreciate all of the listenership. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.